Okay, now this is an example of a setup that I did post in the past, probably the past week. It's in the British pound. It is a daily chart. Okay, and again, here are my dynamic trader tools where I have all the ratios selected that I need for both the retracements and the extensions. And then I'm also going to be using the projection tools where I'm running mostly the 100% price projection. Occasionally, I don't use the 1618 all that often, just occasionally. Okay, so the first thing that I look at as far as a chart is the pattern, and the pattern that I'm looking at here is higher highs and higher lows. Okay, I'm not sure if I can use the pointer tool or if you guys can see my mouse. It doesn't look like you can see my mouse, so I guess, is there a pointer? You can see my mouse? Oh, okay, because I can't see it on my end. All right, so I'm looking at a pattern of higher highs and higher lows. So I wanted to look at possible support. So this is what I did. I'm going to label the lows and highs that I used for the analysis so you get an idea. Of which ones that you might choose to run the work. Not sure I've got that exact high here. Let's see, here we go. Okay, I'm going to take a snapshot of this one. Okay, so one of the first things that I would do here is set up the retracements for possible support. So I'm going to take the tool that uses the low to the high as far as the retracements, and I'm taking the March 11th low, so the lowest low to the highest high. And then I just erase the levels that the market's gone through, because once it goes through it, it's no longer good. You can go through a level by a small margin, and it's still worth keeping in there. But if it's gone through it by quite a few points or a decent margin, it's no longer good for anything, so you get rid of it. Okay, so I ran one retracement there. Okay, I'll mark that low to high. Okay, now there's another retracement I can run from the higher low to the high. So here I'm taking the prior low to the high. Now we've gone through the 382, we've gone through the 50%, we've gone through the 618. We haven't gone through the 786. Okay, so I erased the ones that we went through. Now, after you run all possible price retracements, then you think about, well, what price extensions for possible support would you run? Okay, now I see one extension that makes sense to me, and it would be this low to this high, extended downwards 1.272 and 1618. So here, click on the low, click on the high. We've gone through the 1272 slightly. I'm going to get rid of that. And you have the 1618 underneath. Now usually for the levels that are not close, I just try and erase it to clean up the chart a little bit so that you focus on the actual setup. So we have 4 price relationships there. And what we haven't done yet is run the price projections or the symmetry projections. So for those, I'm going to show you the highs and lows that I'm going to run that from. Okay, you see those 2 swings that I just marked. I'm going to take 100% of those prior swings. Use the tool from 3 points, so I'm measuring a high to a low, and then projecting from the high. And then I'm measuring that second swing. I'll take the high to the low, and then project from the 3rd point. Okay, and actually there were some price relationships that I did have up earlier when the setup first hit, and we saw a bounce off of that area. The rally didn't last, And what we did do was we came back down and tested the lower end of the support in this case. And I'm going to show you something pretty interesting that happened. What I measured here was the prior high to low swing was 670 points in 4 trading days, okay, from that March 24th high to the March 30th low. And then if you measure the new high to low, where we ended up making the low into the deeper support, you'll see that it was 4 trading days, 670 points. So we had perfect symmetry in both price and time. So on the first test of the zone, there was a trade off of it, but you would have gotten stopped out of that one, hopefully with at least a little bit of a profit. But then on the retest, we held the lower end, especially this symmetry projection, the 143.97, and so far that area is holding, and you've rallied 377 points off of that simple symmetry setup. Okay, now I'm not going to get into triggers in this presentation, but then typically, what my clients would do is go to a 15-minute chart or a tick chart or something that would trigger you into the trade if the zone is tested and holds. Now, if this plays out fully on this setup, my price target, or target 1 on these trade setups, is always 1272, if you're looking at a setup that's in the direction of the trend. Okay, so if this pattern is going to continue, the higher highs and higher lows, then we should extend towards this 152.49 area. The only thing that I like to set up on the flip side is the possible resistance that could get in the way on the way up, where you need to protect yourself. And that starts with this 618 retracement area. You want to be careful there. And then also, I took 100% of this prior rally swing over here and projected it from the new low. So if all goes well, we reach 152.49 or higher. But on the way up, meanwhile, it's already rallied 377 points off of that low, so there's some money in the trade. It might not play out fully, but if it does, that's definitely the target that we like to look for. If you make target 1, the next target is 1618, 154.81, and target 3 is 2618. Okay? So does everyone have a general idea of what I'm doing here? Just picking the key highs and lows, kind of identifying the pattern of the market, because I prefer setting up these trades in the direction of the trend. You can use this work for some counter trend trading, but I don't recommend it for beginners or people who are not nimble, which we would call nimble. Well, I'm not sure how I can go any slower, except we can go over a different example. Let's see. This I want to take a snapshot of, so I can post this on Twitter, and you can download it. And let's see. I'll do one more example in here. I'm going to do this one on the yen. And then we'll go take a look at TradeStation. Okay, now a while back I put out a time and price setup on the yen, and we ended up seeing a really nice bounce off of it. Okay, it was where this low was made. Back here, April 6th, okay? So what do you want to find on the flip side, okay? The larger pattern of this market is bearish, okay? There's a pattern of lower lows and lower highs. So what we want to do is we want to know two things. We want to know when the rally from this last trade setup could terminate to both exit positions and possibly reverse. If we end up blowing through the resistance instead, then we can just continue to rally from that last time and price low. There are tools on Ninja that you can use, but I don't actively use it. I did help them set them up, but I really haven't had time to do the extra work on it. Okay, so here, again, if we want to look for possible resistance, you can go to your cheat sheet. You want to run all the retracements of the highs to the lows for possible resistance. You want to run all the extensions of the highs to the lows for possible resistance. And then you'll want to run the projections of lows to highs projected from other lows. Okay, and that will give us the possible resistance on the way up. So let's just start with a retracement here. I'm going to measure the high to the low. I'm going to get rid of the level that was already taken out. So let me mark that off. Here's this high and this low. And let's see, this is another obvious high over here that we're going to run a retracement from. So I'm going to take it from the March 19th high down to the April 6th low. Okay, and you can run some of these other swings too, some of these smaller swings. So far we've done this high to low, and we've done this high to low. These are the really obvious ones. Now you can also run this lower high. We might be getting some overkill at a certain point, but you can run that, and you can run this lower high to the lowest low also. So let's throw those in there real quick. So high to the low, retraced, and then high to the low, retraced. Okay. Now again, I like to get rid of the lines that are not really close to the market because it's just too busy on the chart. But right now you have all the retracements done of the highs to the lows. Okay, so now what about extensions? Where would extensions come in? So let's see. From the larger swings, the extensions came in way above the market, so those really aren't relevant. And let's try some of these extensions here. I've got a high to a low, and you'll see the 1272 extension comes in a bit above here. And then beyond that, there are only some minor extensions down here that you can use, but I believe we've probably gone through those levels. Like, for example, if I took this high to this low and extended it, we've already gone through the 1272 and the 1618, but there's a 2618 that may confirm another area above the market. Okay, so what we would do next is look for price projections or symmetry. So I'm taking the obvious lows to highs to run the projections from. Okay, I see a few different ones that I'd like to use here. Okay, so I'm going to take this prior low to high swing here. That's my first 2 points, and then I'm going to project 100% from the low. It gives me a projection up at 107.45. Then there's a smaller swing here. Let's see, I'll label the March 5th low to the March 19th high. So here, taking this low to this high, projecting from the new low. Okay, there's a projection that comes in at 105.20. And then I'm also taking, let's see, a smaller swing within a swing. So I'm measuring this low to this high. projecting from the new low. Okay, and then this is what's setting you up for possible resistance on the way up in the yen. So if you were long this market off of that last setup, which was, an extension into time and price, at the time that it hit, it was counter to the larger trend because it was an extension within a declining market. But once you saw a shift in pattern on the 15-minute chart, which is typically what I tell people to use, then it was safe to look at a pullback and define your risk for an entry. So what we'd be looking for here now is possible failure in the yen. I'm not sure if this is if this last price is correct, because I thought we had gone a little bit higher. Could be wrong though. But the first areas you would watch for possible resistance would be this 103.66 to 84. But then I really like to focus on the symmetry projections and where it overlaps other price relationships. So as the market will trade up, we still do want to watch for possible failure in the yen at any of these zones that come in, most importantly, under the March 19th high. Okay, because that's a very important swing high. Taking that out would shift that larger pattern. What I'm saying about the 15-minute chart is that if you set up a trade on the daily chart, go to a 15-minute chart to see that chart shifts pattern. You can also do work on the markets on the 15-minute chart. But as far as, a daily setup, I'd like to see a shift, not on a 3-minute chart, but at least on a 15-minute chart. Okay? So does everybody see kind of where the points were that I took the retracements from? And then those projections? Okay, let me capture this one. Okay, yeah, because I think the important point is that you have to work with your own program and your own tools and try and recreate what I just showed you. And then I'll try and go into a couple of simpler examples, like the, I want to get the 15-minute chart, I believe, in the S&P. Let's see how that looks. I'm going to try and switch it over now to, let's see if the TradeStation chart comes in. Okay, now you remember the tool. The tools. This is the retracement lines. This is actually an example in, or how you would use the tool for Google. This is a daily chart of Google, and here I've already set the ratios in my tool, but I believe you have to run it first, and then you can change it. Okay, so here's where I just ran the retracements of the high to low swing here in TradeStation. But if you right click on these numbers, that's where you get to format the Fibonacci lines. Okay, so here's where you want to make your choices there. I don't know, I think somebody said they were having problems, finding that before. But if you have the retracement tool, you should be able to open up that box. You right click to format the lines, and that's where it should be. Yeah, typically if you see a setup on the daily chart, I think you should use a reversal pattern on a 15-minute chart. Yes. Some people will use lower time frame. You can still use that if you want. Just realize that it might only be, a hiccup off of that area. Okay, so do you see where the tools are in TradeStation? I believe you would, if you don't see that drawing bar, you want to go to drawing, and there should be, where are the Fibonacci tools on this? I'm not sure if it actually defaults to it. I'm definitely not an expert using TradeStation, but I know that you can use these tools to do the price work. The only problem and issue that I have with it, which I'm talking to them about, is if you have to erase a line, what happens is that you have to right-click and format and uncheck the lines individually that you don't want shown on the chart. And if you're running multiple retracements, multiple extensions, that is the most tedious thing ever, and I would not be able to run my chat room using this software because everything would take me 3 to 4 times as long to set up. Okay, so is everybody clear on the retracement / extension tool in TradeStation? And how you would change it? Okay, what I want to do is now show you the projection tool. Okay, and again, they call it a price extension line, but what's important is that it's using 3 points. So you'd click on that. And here, let's say in Google, I want to measure for possible resistance. So I'm going to check the low to the high, and then project from a new low upwards to look for possible resistance. And you see where the 100% projection comes in at that 422.37 area. Okay, so that's that tool. Now again, if you run one of the projections using that tool and you want to adjust the ratios, because they're probably not going to have those as default ratios, you right-click on one of the lines, click Format Fibonacci Price Extension Lines, and then you want to, more often than not, just use the 100% projection, but occasionally you may use the 1618. Okay, now what I'm going to need to do to show you an e-signal is actually, I need to shut down DT because it uses e-signal. And let me go open the other program. You're running the projection tool, or, for the same reasons that you're running the retracements and the extensions, for possible support or possible resistance. I mostly use symmetry within the pattern of the two-step pattern or the symmetry setups to get you involved in the market in the direction of the trend. I'll give you an example. Hopefully using a 15-minute chart. Now again, I'm not very familiar with using let's see, these charts, because I do all my work in Dynamic Trader, but I just wanted you to know that it is available. Let's see, if we do ESM9 equals 2, will it give me a chart with only the day session? Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is a 15-minute chart, day session only, in the E-mini S&P. I showed you the projection tool in TradeStation. We'll go over and do some examples after I get through the get through this ES example in eSignal. Okay, here, okay, this is a 15-minute chart. And I'm going to give you an idea of, well, first let's just go over the tools. Here are the price retracements, so you right-click. Okay, again, you can see that you check the ratios that you want to use. I have the 382, 50%, 618, 786, 1272, 1618, and 2618. So if you want to run retracements, well, how about in this example, let's see, I'm going to run a high to a low. And in this case, we've gone through the retracements, but we have extension lines that come in above for possible resistance. And the extension, the first extension being this 866.86 area, the second one for possible resistance coming in at 876.55. Okay, so again, you will run both the retracements and the extensions using the same tool that will just choose or allow you to choose 2 points in the program. Now let's get rid of that. There's the same issue with eSignal. If you want to get rid of some of the lines, you have to go Edit, and then you have to uncheck each line that you don't want showing on the chart. Okay, I find this extremely tedious, and it takes me 3 or 4 times as long to use one of these programs because it does not have a single line erase tool, and because of all the steps that you have to take. If you're only doing analysis on, let's say, a daily chart, then it's not so bad because you don't have to do it that often. But if you're running charts, you know, down to a 15-minute chart or down to a 3-minute chart, like I do it in the chat room every day, it's just impossible to keep it up. Okay, so I'm going to remove those levels and then show you the tool I use for symmetry, or that I would use on this program, and it's called FibExt. I'm just going to use the 100% or 1 for symmetry projections. The definition of symmetry is similarity or equality of swings in the same direction. Okay, so here I'm just looking at some of these prior declines, and I'll take that tool and run, let's say, this prior high to low and project it from the new high, because this is what gave us one of our buy setups late in the session, just comparing the swings or the corrective declines within an uptrend. So I've got the high to the low, projected from the new high. There's another high to low here, or corrective decline within the uptrend, project that from the new high. And then there's another high to low swing that you would project from the new high. So you had 3 symmetry projections here that came in, and we ended up holding that symmetry. And the target, if we get the full move, is going to be 1272 of the high to the low swing. But that's how you actually run the symmetry setup, by taking the prior declines and comparing them, or projecting 100%. Now, in this case, this also overlapped, I believe, a 618. So then I would run the retracement of the low to the high. And again, you have to go back in and edit and get rid of the levels that you don't want to see, which again is very time consuming if you're going to do this work actively. If you only do a daily chart, then it's doable. But this is what you're going to see on the chart. Okay, so does everybody get the tools on eSignal? And I'll go back to TradeStation. Not every single program has the tool from 3 points. I believe Genesis also has it, because I did talk to them about it. I'm not sure. I haven't seen the latest upgrade, though. I worked with NinjaTrader on it. They have it. And TradeStation, eSignal, they all have it too. It's just that they're not quite as easy to work with. I'm going to actually go over where to run the tool in the program that I'm most comfortable with. So we'll go back to that after I show you a symmetry example in TradeStation. So let's get rid of eSignal. Okay, let's get rid of this. I want to remove the Fibonacci lines. Remove the extension lines. Okay. Okay, let's look at, okay, again, this is Google. Now, hopefully you can see the crosshairs here. Now, this is where you're looking at a nice pattern of lower lows and lower highs in Google. So let's say if you were trying to set up, let's see, I believe I can scroll over here. Okay, I want to get rid of this. I'll move this over here. Okay, so let's say we're seeing a downtrend here in Google, pattern of lower lows and lower highs. Nobody can see the crosshairs. Okay, let me see if I can put a line. Can you see this line tool? The point of today's seminar was to show the other programs because that was the complaint that was made last time, that nobody knew how to use it in the other programs. So I'm going over that first. So in this case, if we're looking at symmetry projections with this pattern of lower lows and lower highs, let's just get the tool set up so that we can run it. Okay, I'm going to format this so where it's only showing the symmetry projections or the 100%. So I only have 100% chosen. Okay, so to give you an example, what I'm doing is I'm taking prior low to high swings and then projecting, let's say that this was, let's see how to scroll this over. Okay. Let's say we were here and we're looking to set up a possible short. What I'm doing is taking these prior corrective rallies within the downtrend and then using this tool from 3 points to project 100% of these prior swings from the new low. And that's where you're going to look for possible resistance. Let's see, I would also take this prior low to high swing and project from the new low. Okay, and this one I guess you have to format it to only show the 100%. Okay, so now you can see where I took those prior rally swings. There were 3 of them, projected them from the low at that time, and that's what shows you the symmetry. Okay, I'm going to take the other questions after I get finished, as far as the ellipses and all that, because I don't use any of that. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't have value. It's just that, for me, it's overkill. I've got enough going on my charts during the day that I don't really need anything else. But you might find that, you like different confirmation and you can use that. But this is this would be a symmetry trade setup when you got up to, I believe, this 460. Looks like actually, again, I'm not sure how to manipulate this program as well as I would like to, but this is the zone in red where you would have looked for a possible short in Google just by running these symmetry projections of the prior rally swings. All right, let's get rid of this one. Actually, I'm just going to go back to opening up DT. And now that you see that you do have these other price tools on the other programs, you know that you can use those. I'm going back to using my program. What you might want to do is take either the British pound example that I'm going to post on Twitter or the yen and see if you can recreate what I did. Okay, let's actually put up a Google chart here and look at the same thing. Okay, if you're looking at, again, this pattern in Google on the daily chart, you can see a nice pattern of lower lows and lower highs. Okay, I don't know, can you see my, my mouse this time? Okay, good. So that's the bearish pattern. So let's say if the path of least resistance is going to continue, then I want to set up the sell side again. So let's look at it. We have all of these prior rally swings, and I'm going to mark them so you see them very clearly. So we can take these prior swings and then project them from the new low. There's also going to be a smaller swing here. I already know that we went through that one, but you would run all of the projections. And then when it goes through something, then you get rid of it. So let's see how this one comes up, running the symmetry projections off of the low. So here, I just have the 100% projection chosen. This is using the tool with 3 points, so that you can, use 3 points in the analysis. So here, I believe you can see where I'm clicking on a low to a high and then projecting from the new low at that point, which was 406.38. I could also project that smaller swing, but I know already just by eyeballing it that we went through it. There's another low to high swing that I can project from the new low. Oh, we went through that one also. And then how about this low to high projected from the new low? Okay, well, I'm getting rid of these two because we went through that by too much of a margin. And then, does anybody else see what other price relationships I can run besides the projections of those prior rally swings? Yeah, I actually see a little bit of a zigzag pattern. So I'm going to run the retracement of the prior swing. So I'm going to measure this prior high to low, run the retracement, get rid of the levels that we went through. I can also run an extension of this high to this low. I'll actually mark that one off for you. That would be this high to this low. And then you can also run a projection, one more projection with this two-step pattern. So I measure the low to the high, projected from the low. We went through that one by a little bit too much, so I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, so general area for resistance off of both some symmetry projections and retracements and extensions came in. Now here's where you can kind of, if you can't see the lines that overlap, what you do is you just roll the cursor or the mouse button over the lines and it'll tell you what ratios are in there. So as high as 459.83, as low as 455 area. So if you were looking to get short Google, you would look at that area. If we got up into that zone and didn't surpass it by a huge margin, then you could look for a sell trigger. And then that's pretty much what you got from there. All right, let's see what else we have. Okay, I'm going to recreate, I'm not going to do the timing work on it, but I'll recreate this copy chart that I put out last week. Now, we did have timing at the last low. These pink lines below the chart, you know, that's something that I'm going to go over in the next webinar for anybody who wants to specialize in timing. But we had the timing parameters coming in for possible low in the coffee, and then we had key price support at the same time. When time and price come together, those are some of the best trade setups ever. Okay, so here, what I'm going to do is just erase it like an etch sketch and start over. I usually like to do the analysis on, you know, the regular price bars rather than the candlesticks, because I want to make sure that I'm catching the right highs and lows when I do the analysis. Okay, so here, let's run this as if we haven't seen any support yet. Okay, so if we're running support, we're going to run all possible retracements from lows to highs. So I'm going to click on the low to the high here. That's really the only main retracement that could be done. So I'm getting rid of the price levels that the market went through just by, you know, single line erase tool. And then for an extension for support, do you know what I'm going to run? How about a prior low to a high? Okay, so far I've run a retracement of the low to the highest high. Then I'm going to run an extension of the low to the high, extended downward for possible support. So what you're doing here is you're taking all obvious swings and running all possible price relationships, in this case, for support. You should work one side of the market at a time. So we're running all the possible support. So taking the low to the high, and you'll see that we had an extension at 112.75, which really nicely overlapped that 618 retracement. Okay, so now if we've done, well, actually there's one more extension you can do. You can do a minor extension of this low to this high. And you had a 1618 extension of this smaller swing that came in at 113.04. And then there's a projection that I can do from 3 points, comparing swings in the same direction. So I'm going to take the projection tool and run 100% of the high to the low, projected from the high. Okay, and you see that that came in at 111.95. And I see one more projection that I can run. It's almost like a zigzag, so I'm going to take the high to the low and project from the high. Okay, and that projection didn't really come in very close to the other ones. But you can see that the one that really clustered was this 112.62 to 113.04 area. We just happened to have timing that hit along with it, and it took quite a few days for the market to finally, give you lift off of that zone. Now, what would you be looking at on the flip side if you got long coffee? First of all, you'd want to know what your potential target is. Actually, let me take a snapshot of this one. Okay, the target is, if you're doing a trade setup in the direction of the trend, it's always going to be 1272. So I'm going to measure the high to the low, and the 1272 target comes in at 124.95. So if you get the full move off of this time and price low, because we know we had timing there, as you can see by this histogram, then we should look for a target of 124.95. What I do want to watch out for on the way up, and again, I'm going through my thought processes for you, so hopefully you get an understanding of what you want to look at once you set up a trade, and then how you need to, manage and follow through with that. There's a swing here where I can run a symmetry projection for possible resistance. So I'm going to measure the low to the high, projected from the low, and you'll see that 100% projection, and I'll mark the low to the high. Okay, so that's the March 30th low to the April 13th high, projected from this low over here on April 20th. Comes in at 120.35, overlaps the 786 retracement. So if you're long the coffee, you would want to tighten up your stops if you as you move into or towards this resistance, the 120.30 area. If you can push through it, then the odds vote for a continued rally with a target at 124.95. Yeah, we're not going to go over the hows and whys of timing in today's session, but this is just to show you how time matches up with price. It's just kind of a preview of what you can do also. Okay, so that's the coffee. Typically, if I have time, I type in where the target is. So you have an idea. So what I'm going to do is capture this, coffee 2. Okay. So again, what you want to do after the class is go and try and recreate the same setups by using these charts. I don't know anything about what they call the tool in Genesis. I have the program, but I haven't used it for quite some time, so I don't know the name for it. You're better off contacting them on that. There's a guy, Peter, there that's really smart, and he should know everything about it. I don't even think that I have lumber data. I'm not sure. That's okay. So we're through with the example in coffee. What I want to do is probably go another 10 minutes, and then maybe take. How much of a break do you guys want? 10 minutes, 20 minutes? Yeah, the euro is a good example too. All right. Well, what we'll do is when we get to 2:30 my time, we'll take a break. But let's do the euro then. I'm going to get rid of everything that's on this chart right now. Start from scratch. Now, what I want to do in the euro is look at the current market activity. And let's see. Here, you've got a bit of a pattern of lower lows and lower highs. Now, I did have timing at that last low, okay, in the euro. So there were buy triggers, but they were seen on a 15-minute chart. That's what we've been doing or setting up mostly in the chat room in the last few sessions. But now that this rally is looking similar to this prior rally, what I want to do is see where the rally could terminate or what it needs to get through to continue higher. Okay, so here I want to run, actually first I'm going to label the highs and lows. So if we're looking for possible resistance here, these are really the main swings. Wait, let's see which one is the highest high. Nope, 37 is the higher high. Okay, so I'm going to use, this swing, this. So you're really not using that too many points in this analysis. Okay, so maybe this simplifies it for some people. I'm going to run the retracements of the highs to the lows for possible resistance. So we'll take the March 19th high down to the April 22nd low. I'm going to get rid of what we already went through, the 382. Now I'm also going to run the lower high, the April 6th high to the April 22nd low, run the retracement. So here's the high to the low. Get rid of the ones we went through. I'm also going to get rid of this stuff up here. Okay, so that's retracements. Now, it might be overkill, but there's a swing within the swing, and it's okay if you run this, but you don't have to. I have a feeling we've gone through the retracements, so let's take a look. High to low. Okay, we went slightly above the 786 retracement, so I'm going to leave that in there. Okay, so now I've done only retracements for possible resistance of highs to lows. And let's see, are there any extensions that can be done here? Well, you know what, I just thought about it. There aren't any extensions that would come in close to the current market. There are extensions that would come in above the market for possible targets if we can clear this resistance. So, the main extension that I would look at if we can clear the resistance that I'm setting up is coming in at way above the market at 139.71. And you can run some of these lower extensions also. Okay, but as far as the current prices and decisions, I don't see any extensions coming in close to the market. So what do you want to do next is run any projections, and I really only see one projection that can be run using the three-pointed tool, and that is the March 30th low to the April 6th high, projected from the April 22nd low. Okay, so now are you starting to see a nice cluster for possible price resistance in the euro? I see, I don't know if that's an overlapping level or just two levels. Yeah, there's two areas that I would really like to pay attention to. in the next couple of trading sessions for a possible reversal. Okay? One of the things that you want to look at also is the time. Again, this is just, a preview of some of the things you can look at, but you want to also look at the time of prior swings. So the prior rally here was 5 trading bars and 468 points. So far from the low, we are 0, 1, 2. Right now, we're only 2 trading days away. Monday will be 3 trading days from that low. A lot of times I like to see equality if the market's going to roll over, but we don't have that in this case. But this is giving you a beautiful price cluster between 132.28 to, let's see, 133.13, and then you have, wait a second, I think I said that wrong, 132.80 to 133.13. Okay, so that general zone. And then above that, there's a symmetry projection at 133.46. If this market's going to fail, I believe it should fail within this zone. And I would go down to, or I run the 15-minute charts in the chat room. So if this area is not cleared and we shift gears on the 15-minute chart to lower lows and lower highs, then I'm going to be setting up the sell side with the idea in mind that if this daily high holds, so let's say that high is more important, it targets 127.64. It doesn't mean that it's going to get there. I mean, the market might come off of this zone 100, 200 points, something like that, and then zoom right back through it. But is it a trade setup? Yes. Do you take it just because the levels are there? No. You wait and you see if there's a trigger. And if you get the trigger, the pattern shift, whatever you use, take the trade. And your risk is defined as above the zone. If you don't get a trigger, stand aside and wait for the next setup. So far this last swing was only 2 bars up from the low. The last one was 5 bars. Okay, so let me take a snapshot of this one, because that's a nice cluster that you can recreate as long as you have, a program that has, a tool that can use 2 points and a tool that can use 3 points. Okay, so this is the euro. Okay, let's look at the gold market. I'm going to get rid of this. Yeah, if you're having a hard time with what I'm talking about, you may want to get the book, because everything is pretty much, explained that I do in the chat room every day is explained in the book. I have the chapters on, the retracements, the extensions, the projections. I have the chapters on timing, pattern, time clusters, and basically doing a trade setup from the beginning to the end and using trade triggers. Okay, this, if you see in the upper left-hand corner where the GCM9 is lit up, that's what chart that I'm on. If you get into a general zone, okay, that's where you want to go to my website, and I think if you can, I'm not sure if you can still access the blog if you're not a member, but that's where I have tons of examples of triggers. You get into a zone, if it holds and it triggers by, the other chart shifting patterns, you can take the trade and you know what your risk is. But if you want, I did a presentation at the Money Show in New York, or the Traders Expo, and that whole presentation actually went over my base setups and then how my trading partner executed to enter the trades. Now you can do swing trades with this. I mean, you can do this work on any time frame.